Welcome back to the kickoff. It's me and the lads back to do a bit of a season so far review. We're at the international break now. Obviously, the main story is the situation with Manchester United. And if you're unaware of it, let me just quickly recap. Erik ten Hag has broken his own worst record of Manchester United's worst start to a season at this stage. Previously, it was 9 points after 7 games. Now it's 8 points after 7 games. And also in Manchester United's European campaign, in their last 10 games, they've won 1, 5 defeats, 4 draws. And obviously, ahead of the Villa game, there was massive changes made where Erik ten Hag basically, now that he's finally got his own team, and we've all been told, wait until he's got his own team, his own players, give him an opportunity. We do that. And then he just rips all of those players out and goes with Johnny Evans and the like at the back. KG, it does seem from watching your content, and I'll be honest, I've never watched so much in my life. I've been enjoying every minute of it. Congratulations. It's great. Where's your head at now? Have you just totally given up on the guy and want him out now?
I first want to say, Joey Knight's a prick. Brian,
he did ring you up. He did ring you up on the live stream. Joey's ringing him up repeatedly.
That much.
You done me a favor. Josh as well. There's nothing. They look like lovely guys right now, but I've seen the other side of these guys, and even you there. Usually my issue, my gripes with Brian.
Am I getting it?
My gripes with Brian, but while I say all of these things, I can't deflect from the truth. Yeah, don't you dare. You
should be singing me. I was telling you, we're ahead of everybody. I told you about over a year ago. You got to give me credit, right? Because even when you finished third, I said, this is a false finish. There's lots of bad problems here. Yeah. And I'm telling you now, he's going to get found out. And I've been proven right.
You know what? And then that's why I want to get there and say, you know what? You look all right. I hated coming to I have to apologize to you guys. You guys were right. I hated coming to the kickoff certain days because guess what? I knew what it was going to be. It was a grilling. And all I had to do was do the defense. But I feel like P. Diddy's lawyer. There's no defending it. There's no defending the bottles. We got to the stage now. We're going to jail, and that's where we are right now, guys. I've done too much. I'm on the way to jail. I've defended this man, and yesterday was a step too far. Well, not even yesterday. I was at the Liverpool one. I was there in the flesh at the Liverpool one, and we were smoked. We were embarrassed, and it was like, and that's Arnie Slot that just arrived. So I don't want to hear this bullshit about, new to the team, needs to figure them out, and they're playing a different way. So he's got his point across very quickly. Then after you look at the next game in terms of Spurs versus, and I don't even rate Spurs. I still think Spurs are garbage. But guess what? We're a different type of garbage. They're Spurs, and then we're just beneath that. And that's all happened.
They were all over you from the kickoff. That really hit home of because I was like, let's see what happens here, because you've got all these new players in. I feel like that's the most damning thing about Ten Hag is that the defense from everyone for a long time was, these are the same players who let the last manager down. Yes. And then he spends 600 million and gets all these new players, and it's not getting better. No. It's actually getting worse, mate.
He hasn't even reached.
Where it's indefensible.
He hasn't even reached, and I will say it here because I've been saying it everywhere. Anyone gives me a chance. Honestly, Ten Hag out. What Ten Hag is doing. Yes, don't even be shocked, bro. Do you know where we are? We're 14th in the Premier League. And guys, what's that?
I said, Josh was shocked. I said, you shouldn't be shocked. You wouldn't want Ten Hag managing your club.
I'm only shocked because this guy's been Ten Hag's best mate for about 3 years.
I think that says it all, though. I give you credit, KG, because you have defended him as much as possible. But, it's just to a point where it looks to me now, if you do continue with Ten Hag, you'll be lucky to make top half football.
40 points, mate. I've got to the 40-point stage. 40 points and positive goal difference. I started the league, and I'm speaking about second, third, and winning cups and stuff. Now I'm saying that was a relic. That was good points in terms of on the table. We just, again, we're languishing. Look at the teams above us. I think Bournemouth's above us. West Ham's above us. These are the teams we are bad. And what makes us even more stinky, like what hurts in this breakdown is we play against Aston Villa. Yeah. We play Aston Villa, and you have to understand this. Ten Hag has been at Man United longer than Unai Emery. Unai Emery inherited a stinky Aston Villa in terms of what Gerrard did to it.
In the relegation
and they are now in the Champions League, and we've literally crossed each other. We were the underdogs.
Yeah.
How's that
They're
possible?
literally beating Bayern Munich in the Champions League, much like Eddie Howe with Newcastle. Villa and Newcastle were both in the bottom 5 when their managers came in, and have now pushed on and overtaken Man United, despite Man United spending more money, and also Villa and Newcastle both having to sell players they don't want to sell because of the PSR corrupt Premier League rules. So Ten Hag has been given every possible support from the players, the finances. He has been given so many chances. I don't blame you for running out.
Did you see? And yes, do you know what hurt the most? Yeah, what hurt the most in watching the football yesterday that really just smelled. Yeah, is when you lot all experience Ofsted coming to your schools. You lot understand Ofsted, like it's basically we all experience
Best behavior.
Now we have to understand is we brought in the Sinister Six. We brought in everyone, the senior leadership team, to come and watch this game. He said, I'm switching to 4-4-2. Mate, that's not what you play. But when Ofsted turn up at your school, you actually put the best lesson plan out and you impress because you're there to impress Ofsted. What we did is we changed our formation, changed everything about us, and we were worse. We didn't do anything in that game. It's the lowest XG recorded in the last 2 years from both teams. We stink. Like, burn down whatever plan he had. The fact that we're talking about building for the future. We spent all this money on De Ligt and Leacher, Ugarte. He didn't play them. He had all the firepower on the bench. I wouldn't give him a dime. I wouldn't give him 20p. I wouldn't give him anything. He's taking the piss. I'm done. I'm totally done.
You mentioned that, Casemiro, Ugarte, Xerxes, De Ligt, Martinez, Anthony, over 300 million, not even including Mason Mount. None of them started for him. So all of this about waiting until he gets his own team, it's just bullshit and excuses. I think, look, we have to acknowledge, like, it's gone on far enough. Is there a manager for you that you're looking like, yeah, give him the go? Because it's time, isn't it?
Tuchel. I'm at the door of Tuchel. I'm at the door of Tuchel right now, especially because even if you want to play, does Tuchel play 5 at the back, guys?
Let's just go straight to the Chelsea boys, right? What would that make you feel? Because we've all hoped that Ten Hag would stay as long as humanly possible. You lads know Tuchel, right? You won a Champions League with you lot. Would that scare you? Would that make you think Man United can turn around? Is that a good move?
Yeah,
Josh, you're nodding your head.
I think do you know what? It's not just Tuchel. You could name a few managers and drop a few managers into the hat, because I don't think it's deniable that Man United have a lot of talent in there. They do have good players in there. They almost have. It's funny, right? Imagine this. Chelsea have had so many managers sacked so many times. There's only one example really with Rafa Benitez, when one of John Terry or Frank Lampard wasn't playing when they got sacked or wasn't performing, right? Whereas if you're a Man United fan, not only are you wanting the bad run of form and the bad style of play to come to an end, but you're also wanting the resurgence of Marcus Rashford to happen. And you kind of understand that goes hand in hand with sacking the manager as well. So if you were to do it and you were to bring a Tuchel in, I think it'd be great for you. I think that when you look at after this international break, one thing, you've had kind of relatively tricky fixtures, and after this international break, you play Chelsea at one point, but out of your next 6 games, you got 5 teams in there that are in the bottom half of the table. So what I would be so
6 pointers
angry about if I was a Man United fan right now, and what I'd be so reluctant to do off the back of those 2 draws, is to persevere with Ten Hag a little bit more and just delay the problem, because there's an opportunity there now with this 2-week international break, and then with the sort of 5 weeks that follows with the run of fixtures you've got, there is an opportunity to bed someone in right now. So it's now or never time.
the thing about Ten Hag that we've often said in the group is he doesn't make players better. Yes, he's brought in a few young kids, but there's no proof that they wouldn't have been great without him. The players who he's brought in, even the signings he's made, aren't even improved. The players like Marcus Rashford, who started off well under him, have since declined massively. For Tuchel, Josh, what kind of Man United players do you think he would look at and be able to improve initially?
Well, I think this brings up a sort of a wider point about Tuchel in that he doesn't like working with a sort of overarching management system within a football club. And that is exactly what Man United are trying to build right now with their sort of directors of football and their sort of management team that they're building. And so I do think, although it sounds like it's a recipe made in heaven with Tuchel and he could bring success to the club because he's a proven winner and I love his attitude. I thought he was one of the better managers that we've had in a very long time at Chelsea. And I really respected him as a person. And I think he really did sort of, elevate us beyond what we had the summer.
He got the best out of Mason Mount.
He did. And I think potentially that could be one of the players that he improves.
Flop.
But I'm thinking actually, what I'm going to say now is you're going to, you love Mason Mount. What I'm going to say now, you're going to laugh at, but I honestly do think, and I've said this before, that Potter is the man. And if you give me 2 minutes, I'll explain why. Potter comes in and he works within a system.
Listen to this guy.
Are you gutted, KG?
Go on.
I could have said Southgate.
You're
I could have said
taking the piss.
Southgate, mate.
Go on.
I think that Potter comes in.
Well, there's an Ashworth link, isn't there? There's a link with Dan Ashworth from Brighton.
There's an Ashworth link with obviously connection with England. And obviously they wanted Potter, throughout the England system. And obviously he knew him very well at Brighton, obviously as well. I think he comes in, he rejuvenates the club. He plays a different style of football, plays a different formation than what you're used to, actually brings the club into the modern era, into the 21st century, which you haven't had in a very, very long time. I don't think you've ever really played modern football, to be honest with you, in years since you sacked Fergie, even before you sacked Fergie. And so I think this guy,
left.
I think this guy, sorry, when Fergie left. I think this guy can come in and really improve you. And I do think what's going to happen is that you've got to go through a complete transformation of that football club. You've got to get rid of every single one of those players almost. Keep the young kids, keep Højlund, keep in Mainu, keep in Mazraoui. I think he's been really good since he's come in. Garnacho's looked really good. And Ahmad, I think, has been brilliant as well. I think you could keep a core group of very, very young players. But I think you've got to go through basically the transition that Chelsea went through. And this is me speaking from experience here. And this is why I think a lot of people would outwardly laugh when you mentioned Graham Potter. And obviously your reaction told it all. But I actually do think you need to go through such a revolution of the football club that you need to rip it up. You can't keep persisting with these underperforming players. And I'm including Marcus Rashford in that. And I'm including some other players that you might rate. I mean, Martinez has been nowhere in the last few games. I think you've got to really question whether he's going to be a starting centre back.
You know what's funny about this though? It's this, when you talk about a system, right? There's no denying Bruno, his performances under this manager has got worse every season. But now everyone used to say
every game, even
every game. And it's before was talking about Casemiro. How bad is he? We literally bought the upgrade to Casemiro to run round more, younger, fresh lungs. And even he looks bad. So now guess what's happening? These players, his style exposes everyone. You got Delot, Lissandro's playing left-sided centre-back, but Delot's pretty much a midfielder. He's inverting in the midfield when he shouldn't be anywhere near there. So now what Lissandro's having to deal with, he's making everyone look bad. So I don't even want to judge these players with how we're playing, because Ten Hag's style to work, everyone has to be 100% for us to see almost what he wants to do. And that's a problem.
I think, and credit to KJ for actually, admitting, because you can support your club as hard as you want, but there's got to come a point. I credit you because, I still see online some ridiculous takes supporting Ten Hag, and you just think to yourself, I get it. No one wants to admit they're wrong, but there comes a point where you're making yourself look like a clown by supporting a guy who was literally taking Manchester United lower than we've ever seen them in our lifetimes. And yet, no matter the fact that he's getting all this money and all this support, people are just making excuses to him. We do have to move on because another.
I was just going to ask one question, Brian, before you do.
Okay.
Can they afford to sack Eric Ten Hag is the question.
They can. It's going to cost them 17 million quid. But I don't.
We use the national money.
I mean, look, you are still playing Potter. You're still paying Potter, Chelsea. So,
we can afford it because we've sold about 18 million academy players. Look, I do think, and I've heard this from reputable Man United journalists that have said that the PSR situation is so precarious that sacking him might chuck them over the line.
They've already been let off with mistakes on PSR. That, blaming it on frigging the lockdowns and stuff.
Can I just say, sorry, just to finish here, it obviously pains me to see KG in a state of distress as a friend. Obviously, I wish Man United nothing but the best because I've got a friend that supports them, and that means that I want them to do well. So it does pain me to see Man United in this state. But a direct consequence of seeing them in this state has allowed me to see a man called Jadon Sancho playing at Stamford Bridge. And I'll tell you what, I've got to say thank you because what a player he is.
Oh no. And do you know what? It's obviously the players getting worse under him, but also, David De Gea goes and plays against Milan.
Just a
and has an absolute
the other day.
Unbelievable game. And you've also got Scott McTominay scoring goals for fun in Serie A right now. Look, we do have to move on. Chelsea are one of the most talked about clubs this season for obvious reasons. They've turned things around. But we did say in one of our last episodes, Cole Palmer is an unbelievable footballer, probably the best footballer I watch in the Premier League right now, but he can't do it all on his own. That brings us to what happened in the last game, lads. A bit of a struggle against Nottingham Forest. A game we all would have thought in the form you were in, you would have won. What went wrong, Joey?
I don't know how much did go wrong, if I'm being completely honest. I think it's more what didn't go right in the game. It's hard because I said in my match preview for this game, I said that Nottingham Forest will not come to play football against us. They'll stick 10, if not 11 men behind the ball, and they'll look to catch us on the counter-attack. Callum Hudson-Odoi, Anthony Elanga, and obviously Chris Wood up top. And I said that also the other thing we need to watch out for is set pieces because they've got James Ward-Prowse in there. Now, I wish I hadn't have done that. Someone at Forest must have listened to the match preview and they executed their whole game plan around it. But what I did know I was going to get is the first real definitive answer in a way to how Chelsea deal with the low block, because the low block was something that we came up against time in, time out last season. And realistically, even with Cole Palmer, when he was introduced into the team, it was our Achilles heel. It was something that time in, time out, we couldn't get round. And because we didn't score goals early like we have been this season, it didn't give teams incentivization to come away from them, those sort of tactics. If anything, it cemented the reason of why they need to stay doing it. And in this match, we obviously didn't pass the low block test, but at the same time, we didn't fail the test. And I'm gonna tell you, there was the exact
I'm interested to see where you're going with this.
There was the exact fixture last season.
We didn't fail it.
I am in the stands last season. Nottingham Forest rock up to Stamford Bridge and ruin my day. They come away winning 1-0. They go away and it's the same thing. It's a low block again. Catch us on the counter attack. Anthony Elanga this time it is. And this time round, Chelsea actually persistently were creating chances. We had 21 shots in this game. Now it might beg the question, well, how come you can have that many shots and not score more than one goal? But what I'm saying is we looked like more of a team that had a capability to do it. And I honestly believe if you were to play that match out multiple times over the season, which I'm sure we will do, teams will come with the same tactics. I think that percentage wise, it will go up. We'll deal with it a whole lot more often than we were able to deal with it last season. But obviously it's a shame. What I would say to finish it off is if at the Crystal Palace match, you had offered me that run of form, which would have been 5 wins and a draw going into the international break, I'd have very much took it.
Josh, we are going to have to go on to Liverpool, Arsenal and the like, but in terms of Chelsea top 4 right now, you're sitting 4th. You've got Villa breathing down your neck. Brighton have had a good start. Newcastle hopefully will fucking improve. How confident are you as a percentage Chelsea get top 4?
I think based on how different we are to last season, I think it's a relatively high likelihood. I'd say 60-40 that we'll get top 4, to be fair. When you list the teams there below us, I'm not particularly worried about Spurs or Brighton, to be fair. fair. Like, I think Spurs can have, an awful set of performances. And I stick by my prediction that Ange could potentially be sacked. Brighton, I'm not particularly worried about. They concede goals for fun and they will continue to concede goals. Newcastle, I think your form at the start of the season has been so weird and very difficult to understand and sort of explain. I think you will be up there, but I could see you also dropping down. Your performances, your wins haven't necessarily felt like the best of wins. And then Man United's nowhere near it. And then Villa, I think, Villa are going to struggle with the Champions League fixtures and playing in the Premier League. We kind of saw that with the Man United result. I think if they didn't have the Champions League game in between those, I feel that they probably would have won that game. But I think with the Champions League fixtures, they might
That's
struggle.
such a good point.
But that's not saying that they can't get there. I'm just saying they're going to find it more difficult.
It's the level that Villa are playing at, because we thought that they would struggle with the Thursday night football. And obviously, listen, I know we've lost a game so far in that competition, but I tell you now, boys, I've watched a fair few games in this Europa Conference League. The level's rubbish. It's honestly rubbish. So I don't think, apart from the travel things, that come into play, I don't think it's going to affect you all that much. What I would say is, I was telling you before off camera, Brian, I was looking at the Premier League table after game week 7 last season, and actually, albeit, in a different order, it's the same 7 teams, barring Spurs and bringing Chelsea in to that top 7. So I think that going on the last few seasons, we kind of know what we're up against now. We sort of have that established amount of teams that have come there. And I say it's not in the exact same order. It's almost. Man City have 1 point less. I think Liverpool have the exact same. Arsenal have 1 point less. Newcastle, I think, are in the exact same position as they were. Yeah. So we're seeing the table shape up very similar to how it has in the past. And that then allows me to draw a conclusion that Chelsea are definitely getting Champions League football this season.
Well, I see in the KG's face saying that the consistency is there. Josh, you mentioned Spurs, and I really do want to come back to you, because not only was the defeat the other day shocking, it is becoming more consistent to see Spurs. I know there's this thing about the Spurs being Spursy, but under Ange, they played a really nice brand of football. But that interview he gave afterwards, and it's not the first time, it's becoming more consistent from him as well. He's starting to look defeated, right? I think he really took this big job on in the hope of, you know what? Yes, Spurs are Spurs, but I'm me, and I'm going to change this, and I'm going to overcome the culture of this club, and I'm going to change the whole philosophy of this football. We used to talk about philosophy a lot back in the day. He has a philosophy, and the way he had his eyes glued to the floor during this, he might as well have resigned. It really reminded me. In fact, it was worse. There was an interview Kevin Keegan gave when he quit as England manager. In the interview, he announced he'd quit in the interview. Kevin Keegan looked happier and more upbeat and positive when he resigned mid-interview on Sky than Ange Postecoglou did. And it was, if you're a Spurs fan, this man is here to motivate your players. This man is here to lead. When you look that dejected, because being a leader is not about showing your emotions. It's not about letting everybody see. You're actually, and the one thing I can almost give Ten Hag a slight bit of credit for.
I don't give him no credit.
When the house is burning down around him, Ten Hag is a total fraud in that he can actually pretend like everything's fine.
He's still
but sometimes you have to do that as a leader.
It's just a fire feature.
You have to pretend Ange, poker face. You got to have your poker face on. Ange is showing, I am fucking screwed. Yeah,
Can I jump in on that, please?
Yeah, because that should worry Spurs fans, in my opinion.
So I have to jump in on this one because we've seen this before. He's not the first Spurs manager to have this level of breakdown. Conte, we can never forget Conte's 2 breakdowns. When Conte is like, you could see that this club was breaking Conte to the core. And Conte didn't even understand. As a winner, he was like, I don't even recognize this. I don't recognize, he's like, if they sack me, you heard Conte go on that spiel, right? Yeah. Then you saw Jose.
Sack me if you want. Because I'm not to blame here. This is your problem.
There you go. Then we had Jose Mourinho had a similar one. Jose Jose's left a lot of clubs in a crazy way, right? But even when Jose plays back his time at all the clubs, even as Man United, as mad as we were, he always says that experience at Spurs is probably the worst thing he's ever experienced in his life. So now you're talking about elites. You're talking about elites. And now you're talking about a guy that's had Celtic and some team in Brisbane or some team in Australia. Yeah. And he believes that his winning mentality is enough to rise that dead ship of Spurs. You can't do it. And what he's having the first day, because it's always two. The first one was when Spurs fans wanted them to lose, so Arsenal don't win the league. And he had his first breakdown when he goes, I wanted it, but I don't know what's going on with everybody else. You know, I'm a winning guy. And it's like, wait, chill out. All right, that's your first one. The second one was when he went mad at the lady when she spoke about, winning titles. And he goes, the season's not over. I definitely win something in my second season. I think what he's had on that last game was the realization, we're shit. We're not actually going to do nothing. And that result against Man United was a false storm because we're shitter. He shouldn't have looked at that and thought we turned the corner. We're just as rubbish. Well, we're worse than you guys, but you're still crap.
Yeah.
They
People laughed at me when I said that
this season already.
You all laughed at me,
and they're still statistically now. Listen, Spurs are actually always quick out the traps, aren't they? So being 10th doesn't make for awful reading when you think about Man United start, Chelsea start last season, but it's their worst start to a season in 16 years, and that includes a start to the season where they have pumped a few teams. They have gone to Old Trafford and put 3 past them. So. It's, the warning signs.
Spurs are just a bit too nice, aren't they, lads? Like, they're nice to what, I don't mind the football that they play. They play nice football, but they're just not nasty enough, right? And there's even Spurs fans. I pretty much like all Spurs fans. Like, they're just an inoffensive football club. And that doesn't get you trophies, right? And even when they came to St. James's, they outplayed us, but we were just more cutthroat than them this season. We do have to move on though. Arsenal. There's been some suggestions that they're not quite as good as they were last season in the way they've been playing, but they're digging out results. Is that a case of showing a bit of championship mentality, or is it a bit relying on luck a bit? Like, where are we seeing Arsenal this season?
I think they're better. I think they're better.
Okay.
I honestly think they're that. Do you know what? Go ahead.
I sat around the kickoff table with you guys and I said, and this was last season, right? And I said the sort of worrying trend is Arsenal are starting to win games in the fashion that they were winning games the season before when they ultimately did bottle it towards the end. And the way that the fashion I'm on about is like last gasp winners coming back from 2-0 down 3-2 mistakes and then coming and win. And they're starting to win games a little bit in that fashion. I understand it was 3-1 on the weekend, but they left it a little bit late and they're starting to win games in that fashion a little bit earlier on. And when I said it around the table on the kickoff last season, I said that winning in that way does come to an end at some point. Sometimes you just need the 2-0s. You need the boring wins that are just nicely spread in there. And I do think that there will be the opportunity to be found out a lot more this season. And I think that the hearing and the ruling with Manchester City is the only thing that could really make me confident that the bookmakers are right and this is Arsenal's season.
No, do you know the reason why? As a bona fide Arsenal hater, I'm always looking at the progress of this team and trying to work out, well, how high can I dial up the hatred? Yeah. And guess what? I'm struggling to find like the chinks in the armor. You're talking about a team that's without one of their most creative players in Ødegaard. He's quality and he's not there. But that set piece thing that they have, you know, that feeling of when Man City, you look at your phone and Man City's a goal down and you're like, they're going to come back and win that. I feel that with Arsenal now. I never used to if Man City are losing a game, you're like, you know how that one ends. I'm not going to invest my time in watching them try to watch a capitulation that I'm not going to see. With Arsenal now, they're winning nasty. They're doing everything. When you get a corner, I saw Spurs fans turn around when their corner was given to Arsenal because guess what? They expect to score from a set piece. That is a big issue. And the team is just set up like that.
The only worry is their lack of firepower. There has been a couple of moments this season where you thought they fucked it and this is why, and they've got away with it. Trossard has popped up with some nice strikes, but I must admit, the longer it goes on, the more I'm expecting that to come and bite them in the arse. It's just whether or not Man City might also be bitten in the arse by losing their main man in the middle. When Newcastle played them the first game without, what's the centre midfielder's name, man?
Rodri.
It's gone. Rodri, my bad. And, you know, City were the better side, but Newcastle were worth a point, in my opinion. And, you know, Dan Burn pocketing Erling Haaland was really a moment for the ages for me, because that's what it needs. It needs a big, powerful bastard to actually get a hold of this man. That's your only hope. You need a mountain of a man to have a go at him, and to stay on him. But, City were good in that game, and they've been good in every game. But I'm just hoping that this Rodri thing is the thing that makes them human.
What's interesting with City, right, is that they're 6th in expected points and 5th in XG. And I can't remember a Man City team underperforming the stats in that level. Like, they haven't had the easiest fixtures, but they have also played Ipswich, West Ham, Brentford, and, you know, Fulham, who are up there, but not amazing.
Yeah.
And they conceded 2 goals to them as well. So for me, if you're looking at the data side of this, Arsenal 1st for XG, 4th in expected points, like overall, like, they're the ones that I think we need to be worried about the most. I do think that City, if you're just looking at the pure numbers, they're the ones that potentially are going to be the ones that drop out of the title race in comparison to Arsenal. So
there's a lot of pressure on Haaland, essentially, isn't there, to carry them, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
but then we
10
have to
goals
be
so far.
Drop out. Yeah.
Drop out. Are you?
Drop
We're
out
talking
might have
about
been
City.
too far.
By the running, like by the 8 game to go mark, you think there's a possibility that City could not even be in it?
I'm saying not that they're not going to be in it, but I'm saying this is the season in which Arsenal might be the ones to take the title. That's the way that I'm going to phrase it.
We haven't talked about Liverpool yet, lads. They have made a flying start, very similar to last season, although with a different manager. And I think most of us expected not a drop off in terms of Liverpool just playing shite all of a sudden, but a percentage, maybe a 10%, a 20% difference, where a new manager, new philosophy, new ideas. All right, he's got the same players, but I'm surprised at how good they've looked, and they've played some really fun football to watch as well. What do you reckon?
I'm a
I think
numpty.
not only in the league as well. Look at their
Sorry, I
Champions
didn't have them in the top
result.
4. I just had to let you lot know. I didn't have them in the top 4. I thought it was all going to go wrong. I thought losing Jurgen Klopp was going to be the be all and end all. Like, that's the true motivator. That's the guy that you run through brick walls for. And I thought literally it's Chelsea when they lose Jose the first time. And it's like, well, that's his team. And I literally thought there would be a drop off, and they're fine. They're more than fine. They're really good.
Do you think as well, like we see with their attack, we always know what they've got to offer. They've got bundles. Salah's on 8 goal involvements in 7 matches already this season. I think it looks like he's got the bit between his teeth a little bit. You could tell that in the running last season when he wasn't getting the exact amount of minutes and he wasn't centre forward at times, he was feeling frustration. And Arne Slot as well, like, probably goes under the radar as he's actually gone in there and improved a few players as well, especially on like last season's showing or so far. Gravenberch, I thought, has been good this season in comparison to where he was at last season. So I think with the context as well of their European results, I think Liverpool have started to a flyer really this season.
I've got to give credit to Klopp, ironically, even though he isn't managing. Like, we've seen great managers achieve fuckloads, but the team that they leave behind, bit of a mess, needs a full rebuild. I mean, even Sir Alex, like, it's not all his fault, don't get me wrong, because he wasn't given the full backing to rebuild as he was going. But, you know, that was a project that Manchester United are still struggling to rebuild even like 10 years plus later. So Jurgen Klopp has really left behind a well-oiled machine for Arne Slot. And Arne's putting, you know, the likes of Ten Hag to shame by just ironically slotting in and doing a great job. But can they maintain it, lads? Do we think that they're a genuine threat this season?
In the next 5 or 6 games, we're going to know, because they've got Chelsea, Arsenal, Brighton, Villa, Southampton, City, and Newcastle.
Yeah.
So like, we're going to,
because they've had some nice games, haven't they? They've had nice games, haven't they?
Is here. If Jurgen Klopp was here this season, the way that the shapes are shifting and the way that it looks like the land might end up lying, I think this is the sort of season that if Jurgen Klopp was here, I would say yes, they can maintain the pace. At the moment, I'm very hesitant to say it after 7 games because, you know, after a few games, we had seen Erik ten Hag had turned the first few results round and had then got a win over Liverpool and started looking good, and then things started to fall apart. You know, I'm reluctant to scream from the rooftops about Enzo Maresca at this second in time as much as I want to, because it is a short amount of time. And I'd have to say the same. I'd say if they had started like this, if the league had looked the way it had been, especially with what you've said there, Josh, about, you know, the XG and the underperforming stats on the last few years of Man City, I think with Jurgen Klopp at the wheel, you'd be seeing Liverpool as favourites now. But I'm reluctant to say it because, if I'm being completely honest, I don't know enough about Arne Slot.
Don't you think there's more sustainability though in the way they play?
The defeat to Forest.
Sorry, go on.
KG, the defeat to Forest at home, was that something that was a little bit of a, what about this, lads? Like that is something that we should take into account, because that is a game that under Jurgen Klopp is a formality.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was going to say yes to that, but then the next game they play AC Milan in the Champions League and they right those wrongs immediately. You know, they go out there and point in and say it was a blip. You know, that's what you now class it as. When you talk about if Jurgen Klopp was there, I think where they might have a different type of strength is because they play it's not heavy metal this time. It's a different brand of football. So I feel that the way they're playing and the tempo they're playing to is a bit more sustainable. And I feel that they should, if they look like they're just going to be there. Like, I can't see them not being a part of this. Now, those 5 games will really tell the truth, because I remember how, the Aussie guy started, in his first season. They look wicked. Like, the Spurs look like they could do anything to anyone. Right. So you can't get I know the feeling of you can't get too excited too soon about a new manager, but there's something about the systematic, slow way, methodical way of the way these guys are playing. Now they are getting away with stuff because Virgil van Dijk pulled, he literally pulled, he had it by the hand. And they did it. It's a penalty. For me, that's a penalty. I think it's Gay in the Crystal Palace game. And they're just loved. So they will get some of the decisions for some strange reason.
The generational £70 million defender Gay, as Parish referred to him as when Newcastle were trying to sign him. I'm never going to forgive that.
Still mad
so
like
true.
that.
You're still going to sign him anyway. You're going to sign him for 70 million in January.
One thing that makes life interesting, just one last thing on Liverpool. Trent Alexander-Arnold's contract up at the end of the season, Real Madrid were already sniffing around. They've just got an injury, which really leaves the perfect moment. There's rumours that they're going to offer £10 million for Trent in January, because Liverpool basically, it's like, well, you can have him for the rest of the season, or give the cash over and we'll get that. But the only issue is if Liverpool are in a title chase, you want to keep him, don't you? You want to say, fuck the fucking
Trent could never leave Liverpool like that. He'd destroy his legacy. It's like what Michael Owen did when he decided to come play for us. Even though he still tries to beg it with the Liverpool lot, they're not going to forgive him for that. He should have never wore that shirt. Yeah. If Trent leaves them in the lurch like that, nasty work. He couldn't do something like that.
We mentioned Aston Villa earlier. I just want to touch on them again and give them a fair amount of respect, because, again, the job that Emery has done, I really felt like Aston Villa had a similar moment to what Newcastle had a year ago when we beat PSG in the Champions League. When they beat Bayern Munich, it was a moment of like, wow, you've really taken this club to such a level. And again, they've been good in the Premier League this season, 4 wins, 2 draws, 1 loss. And I do think what's been said earlier is about right, in that they'll be there up there, they'll be threatening, but the problem that Newcastle found is when you do get those good results, it takes a lot out of you. And a team like Man United, who we all thought Aston Villa could batter, they just didn't have the leg power. You've seen the lack of creativity, the lack of running going forward in the final third. It will take its toll, and that's why, for me, Chelsea being in that Europa Conference is a blessing in disguise, and that's why I think Chelsea will actually pip them to top 4 this season. But I've got to give credit, man. Like, that win was sensational.
It was brilliant. And Emery's he's a quality manager. They do have I think they still got a bit more to give though. Yes, they had that experience and they lost it. It was I think the emotion of beating Bayern was something they wasn't really used to. So they didn't go into the Man United game with the right mentality and probably, took us lightly just because of how bad we've been to Spurs and everyone. So they thought we just roll up here and we'll do these guys. And that's the mistake of they are now the front runner. They are now the hunted. And they've been hunting before. And that's a new position for these guys. So they really have to quickly get their mindset into, okay, everyone wants to get a scalp over us. We need to deliver, where they've tried to do that to other teams.
For Newcastle, I'll make this the last club because I think I'm being cheeky even putting us up there right now, but we are in 7th. We've actually accrued a fair amount of points considering how poor we've been in most of our games. We've played well in one game this season out of 7. We played well against Man City. We fought to the death against them, against Everton, and even against Wimbledon in the Cup the other night. I must admit, this is a reoccurring theme. I feel like the magic that Eddie got early on, the overperforming from the likes of Murphy, Almiron, Longstaff and other players, we're really seeing a regression, in my opinion, in the technical ability. We're seeing the true level of what these lads are really about. And even in the games this season, Anthony Gordon, Bruno Guimaraes and Isak, the 3 players who we really rely on for everything, none of them have started this season well. None of them have played even good, in my opinion, aside from the odd game here and there, but it's been poor. I think that we've really paid the price this season in not spending money in the summer.
Yes.
We needed a right winger desperately. We've got championship level quality going forward, and the lack of creativity, it's horrendous.
Do you know what?
And with Isak injured, we bought a young lad called Osula, big lad, built exactly like Isak, quite quick. In this Everton game, we're crying out for a goal, and Eddie doesn't bring on the young lad who we paid 15 million for. And the question is well, what the fuck did you buy him for? And just generally, I'm looking at this Newcastle team thinking, we will be fine this season. We're going to play all right. We're going to achieve nothing though. We're not going to win any cups. We're not going to be in the top 4. We're just going to be in the top 7 existing. And it's a weird feeling because on the one hand, we're not the shit team that we were under Mike Ashley. It's not relegation, but because of the Premier League PSR rules, it's also not threatening anything. It's just there. And it just kind of feels like I'm back to square one, right? I'm able to enjoy games of football, but even then, we're still not playing great at the moment. What are we doing then?
To add to what must feel like a bit of a sting in the toe as well is a few of your boys you've let go have been playing really well. That Minter looks class. Who's the young kid? The other one, Anderson looks good. So I feel really sorry for Newcastle. I can compare it to Man United in a way, right? In terms of, no, not the downfall, but in terms of look, I'm recording out of my room right now, right? I'm way more productive when it's clean, okay? If it's messy, I'm not as productive. And if there isn't that love being put into it, I'm not as productive. The difference is Newcastle have their hands tied. It's like me needing my room cleaned, but the missus isn't home. I can't do it. Do you know what I mean? So what I'm trying to say is if your hands are tied, I think that can feed down from the top. I do honestly think that feeling of a bit of frustration can feed all the way down to the players, and you're now seeing it play out on the pitch a little bit. I'm very reluctant to really put the blame at the door of Eddie Howe. And obviously you're the one that watches Newcastle in a lot more detail every single game. I didn't watch the performance against AFC Wimbledon during the week. So you're the one that will be able to...
I think, do you know how things happen though? There's that feeling of when another job comes up or there's another attractive offer. Anthony Gordon, the Liverpool thing was real. You know, that was something that, you know, can turn a man's head. The England job, Wiley said everything's fine, but if you now start to fight with the powers that be at the top of the club, because there's a way that Howe wants to run it, and there's a way that Newcastle want to run it. And there is definitely a difference there. There's definitely a difference in ideology, philosophy, in how they want to move this thing forward. And at the same time, they do have their hands tied. So now you're talking about players that eyes were turned, a manager who he didn't have his eyes turned because I thought he loves Newcastle, but he can't have Newcastle the way he wants to have it. And the England job is calling, but now Carsley is in there, and it's like, have I missed that experience? Have I missed the boat?
Think about the greatest, mate. Sir Alex Ferguson managed for a long time, stayed motivated, players stayed motivated because he kept refreshing the squad. If you can't refresh the squad and you can't make these players feel like we as a group are elevating, we're going somewhere, we're standing still. And when you stand still in the Premier League, you're going backwards. We all know that. So I think Eddie has really been fucked over by the people who are responsible for signing players. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad we didn't sign Gay for 70 million because that was batshit crazy in my opinion. Yeah. And the fact that they even asked for that where are Palace? Bottom 3, by the way, Palace, with a generational £70 million defender. It's absolutely insanity what people do after a tournament. And look, even then, we desperately need reinforcements. We're not able to do that. So the Premier League won. And this is the most mental situation to be in, right? Because for years, I've wanted rules and regulations to be brought in for a level playing field, for fairness in the Premier League, for Manchester City to be not necessarily fully punished in terms of taking titles away, but to just feel like each and every person has a fair and equal opportunity, you know, to invest money and have somewhat of a fair playing ground. But now, as a Newcastle fan, because the sanctions on Newcastle are so tight, we're not able to spend any of the money that our owners want to invest in us, which I'm not expecting us to be allowed to do whatever the fuck we want, but it's to the point where we're having to sell players just to even exist. Yeah. You know, Minter and Anderson, we got about 70 million for. We haven't reinvested any of that money just because we need to exist. I'm now ending up going to have to root for Man City in this legal battle because if they don't, if Man City win, the restrictions on us could be loosened a little bit, and we can then fight a little bit more and do a little bit more. If Man City lose, well then we're destined forever to be sitting in the fucking middle of nowhere by the looks of it. So it's a really strange situation to be in. I'll wrap it up there. This has been a fucking great chat, lads. I think we should do this every now and then, just a general season review. It's been a good one.
Not for me.
Don't forget to check out all the boys' individual challenge as well. They're killing the game, and I'm sure we'll have an update from KJ depending on what happens with Eric Ten Hag. Hit the like button, subscribe to the Kickoff YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.